You're listening to GotTechED the Podcast with your hosts, Eric Guise and Nick Johnson. Welcome back to GotTechED the Podcast. This is episode 64 called Mindset Mondays with Anthony Tyrkala. In this episode, we'll be talking with Mr. Anthony Tyrkala about the power of a positive mindset and the role of EdTech in supporting it. This episode is packed with inspiration and ideas. Check it out.
All right, so we're very excited about today's episode. But before we get started, if you like the content that you're hearing, please do us a couple of favors. Subscribe to GotTechED the Podcast on any major podcast platform. Follow us on Facebook, and also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. We're constantly coming out with new content, new videos, how-tos, templates. We're giving stuff away, so go there. You could write us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. You could also tell your friends about www.gottech.com. Go over there. That is our platform, which we put everything that we do.
You can follow GotTechED outside the podcast at gottech.com or on Twitter at WeGotTechED. So our guest today is a K-8 principal, Army veteran, creator of Mindset Mondays, doctoral student at the University of Miami, and most of all, a very passionate educational leader. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Anthony Tyrkala. Anthony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to tell you something. You know, I'm very active in the Twittersphere, Twitterverse, whatever you want to call it. And at the beginning of COVID, you are someone that stood out to me in March. We were coming across paths on certain chats that we both, I guess, participate in. And I'm a collector of quotes. I know Nick is a collector of quotes. You were throwing out a lot of good quotes and also good stuff in your chat. So I wanted to make sure that I followed up with you a little bit. And when I got on your personal Twitter, I noticed a couple of awesome things that you're doing. And this is what we want to highlight. This is what we want to showcase today. But so glad to have you here. Basically, just to start us off, tell us who is Anthony Tyrkala and what has been your educational journey.
Well, I appreciate it. And like you said, when COVID first kicked off, I think, everybody who wanted to connect and see where everyone's mindset was really got on Twitter. And I use my Twitter specifically for education. And it was amazing to see the participation in chats just explode. I had been kind of absent for a little while, but, I had the need to get out and see what everybody around the country and around the world was doing. So I appreciate you connecting with me, and it's been great. For me, my journey into education is a little bit through the back door. I started K-8. I was a great student, got into high school, and it was all about having fun. Parents didn't have gradebook portals at that time. If I could get home and erase the answering machine in time, they didn't know if I was absent. So unfortunately, I took advantage of that, and I didn't, apply myself 100% in high school. Through that, I ended up going into the military and decided, I can make a difference and I can work with children. I took my route through first going into counseling, changed my mind on counseling after hearing from a few people that, those who teach children are the ones that get to really reach children. And I really took that to heart. So I got my history degree and went into teaching. It was amazing, but something just kept calling me to make a bigger difference. So I've been at the same school now for 9 years. I started as a 7th grade civics teacher. Then I was a dean, an assistant principal, and this is me starting my 2nd year as principal at ACES. So it's been an awesome journey, and it's just been great to be able to reach young kids and make a difference for educators, which they have the best career in the world. So anything we could do to support educators is awesome.
Well, first of all, we want to say thank you for your service. That's awesome. Your story is pretty amazing as far as how much you grew from the middle school level through your high school experience and then through the military, and how you brought it back into your teaching practice. And I just wrote down the quote, teaching children allows you to reach children and really expand that greater reach there.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot. We appreciate your service. And that was an awesome story there.
I'll kind of second that. I'm always really interested, not just teaching, but any career-minded person, how their time in the military kind of affects that. Because I have a lot of family who's in the military, and they always talk about how what they do now is so different compared to probably how they would have done that job had they not been involved in the military in some way. So, in the education realm, how did that shape, if at all, in the way you kind of see your role, in the way you run your school? What did that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I always say, going into the military was definitely the best decision I ever made. It shaped everything about my life, from that day moving forward. So, my military experience shapes everything I do. I really believe that. But in terms of my work, I know for a fact it shapes a lot. I always say military experience is like a cheat code at life. You come out and you're around what we term civilians, and you look around and you just realize, my mentality alone, my mindset alone helps me have an advantage over anyone else who looks at a problem and thinks about the problem before the solution, or who is working on something and isn't realizing what is their mission for the bigger picture. So for my school, I always go into everything with a mission-oriented mindset. What is the ultimate goal, right? With kids first, always being, up there. And then what are the objectives that help us get to that goal? And how do we measure those objectives? What are each individual, part or person's objectives, and how do we help them meet their objectives? So all of that is just ingrained in you in the military. And it's crazy. I was only in the Army for 5 years, but I've been out now I got out in 2007. So I now have been out for 13 years, and still I feel the day-to-day impact of that time. And I'm positive it will continue, on forever. I really think it shaped everything about who I am and how I, work as a leader.
So if you had to say that your top 3 skills that you're carrying over from the military into your classroom, or into your principalship now, what do you think those 3 skills are?
So one, I would say having a mission-oriented mindset, always focusing on the mission and ignoring everything else that doesn't get us towards our mission. Number 2, when I was in the Army, I was an air traffic controller. So I had the additional benefit of learning a career and a skill set that required you to do what we call controlled chaos. And, I became comfortable in chaos. Right now, we're living in the middle of COVID-19. Without that experience, right? There's no way I could, operate on a day-to-day basis with news headlines coming from one direction and parent questions coming from another, and staff, feeling left out in the equation, and trying to balance all of these different interests and these different needs. I can be calm about it because I've learned you have to calm down and then address the issue. You can't address the issue from a place of worry. So controlled chaos and mission-oriented mindset for sure. And then just not seeing problems as problems, seeing them as something to be solved. I had some great leaders who, no matter what we were asked to do as a team, they were immediately thinking, how do we do it? Could be the most ridiculous thing in the world. We need you to get 10 men and push that wall 10 feet. And their first instinct was literally, all right, guys, let's get to the wall. It was not, you can't push a wall, and you bring that to everything you have, you're going to achieve so much more.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson. Probably also helps with stress. If you tackle problems or concerns or issues that way, your stress level would probably be a lot more subsided.
I think that was one of the things I want to sort of call out there. There's 5 things you said we could probably have a full 10-minute discussion on. But I think for me, the biggest one is how you said that controlled chaos, right? And getting that experience and being ready for that before you step into the classroom. I know I've had moments kind of standing up in the front of the room, just sort of looking out at the kids all working on different stuff and thinking oh my God, how is this going to come together to be anything? And I would imagine as a principal, you get that same feeling, but now it's, it's not just a classroom, it's 50 different classrooms, and you're just kind of standing there at the front of the school watching it all happen. And that's hard to get comfortable with. So I'm glad you brought it up as something that's kind of important to think about as a teacher. And I want to transition too, because we are an EdTech podcast, and some of the stuff you do in the EdTech world is pretty exciting. And Guise mentioned it at the top of the show. You're active on social media, in particular with a thing called Mindset Mondays. Could you just walk us through sort of how that came about, what it is, where it started?
Yeah, I believe in the power of educational technology to kind of expand reach and expand connections. And when we were starting this year, knowing I was taking over as principal, I was wondering what will be the theme, right? I have a theme for the school every single year. And we went with Mindset Matters. And we focused on mindset for the entire year, but I thought it was important to have some kind of connection. Right? And guys, it's interesting you mentioned your affinity to quotes, because initially my idea was, all right, every Monday I'm going to send a quote to the staff, and then that's it, right? That quote will help shape their mindset. And then slowly that idea, as July rolled and August rolled, shifted to, I'm going to send the staff a newsletter every Monday, and I'll call it Mindset Monday. And, the quote was there, and then I started adding some text ideas. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll also add a connection piece. And then, you have to end on something positive. So let's add a brain break with some jokes or some videos. And it kind of just came together naturally like that, so that we can embed the ideas of growth mindset, benefit mindset, grit, reflection, all of those important things that shape our mindset, we could embed that throughout the year. And as we approached COVID-19 and spring break, we were right at spring break when we went completely mobile. And at that point, I thought, you know what, the education community as a whole could benefit from this. So I took the newsletter I would already send my staff anyway, and I would kind of tweak it towards an audience that's more general for ed leaders or educators. And I also at the same time did a third one where I was sending it to our parents so that they can, and theirs was completely different, focused on their students at home and their children and how do they manage school, and reminding them that you have to approach it with the appropriate mindset, because we're in crisis, right? School is not going to be school the way we know it in March. Hopefully it will be as we move forward. So that's how it came about. It really came about with the idea of having that consistent reminder. And I always add in there that I'm benefiting from the process of writing it myself, because it's a practice. You have to constantly remind yourself to have that mindset. So getting that out there through Twitter and using some more to build it and building in different tools within it, like Padlet, it's really been awesome to share with everybody. And it's been great to get feedback from those outside of our building. And I know within my building, it's great when people email and say they really enjoyed it and they're looking forward to the next one. It makes it easier, throughout the week to build it up, because it's benefiting someone.
What's the? I'm interested in the parent side of that too. I've only seen the ones you put up on your Twitter page. Yeah. What's the feedback been like from parents? Do you hear much from them? Because I think that's even for teachers, maybe like the most common thing that we leave out is kind of informing our parents of what's happening in the classroom, especially the good stuff, right? Like, look at all these cool things my kids are doing right now. Have they been appreciative or asked for different things?
Yeah. So I did it from March through June for the parents. I'm deciding if we'll pick it back up in the school year with, so many moving pieces. We'll decide how that works, but they really enjoyed it. We talked about, I kind of shifted away from just, reflection and mindset specific things to a lot more personal well-being. And that became the focus for quite a while, because we were at a point where that's what was needed, right? Everyone needed to remember that, as a teacher, no matter how hard I'm working, I have to take care of my kids and my family and myself, or I can't help anyone. And then for the parents, they loved, the practical application of how do I set up a schedule for my student? How do I focus on healthy eating habits when we're trying to stock up on food possibly in our pantry? How do we focus on sleep and setting a schedule when there's no schedule set for us anymore? They really enjoyed it. I had, great participation. I would get emails, and then also ideas. It even built connection. There was a dietitian within our community of families who reached out, and I was able to promote one of her webinars that she was going to hold. Another family, she's a director within the Cadena initiative, and she shared, some webinars that were going to happen for families to do live cooking demonstrations, or just family get together on best practices in managing the situation. So it was a great experience with them.
Yeah, I think you did a great job of making the community really a connected community by doing that. I absolutely love the fact that you're branching out and you're not only just taking care of your teachers, you're not only just taking care of your students, but you're also taking care of your parents. And I think sometimes that parental group gets left out of these types of opportunities when they might need it just as much as the students and the teachers. I think that's pretty awesome. Our principal and vice principals, they do a weekly bulletin for us, and they have a mindset piece that's in there. And I know that they use S'more.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't catch, you might have said it, but I didn't catch what medium you use for your Mindset Monday.
Yeah, I also use S'more. I love it. I think it's the perfect way to build, communication. It's simple. It's cut and dry. It's one of those things where you could envision 30 or 40 extensions that they could build into it. But then you sit back and you think, you know what? I'm glad they don't have that, because then I would be going too far and it would take too long and I may not even do it. Because it's so simple, it means it's something that I'm going to do consistently and it's going to have a consistent format. I think it's a great way to communicate.
All right, so that's really awesome, and I'm glad you brought up S'more, because I think, what I was going to say, guys, was pretty much the same thing you asked. Is I always like to imagine, what if there is a teacher or a principal or any other position out there listening to this, and they're saying, yeah, you know what, I've been thinking about a newsletter, I want to do it. S'more does kind of seem one of the top options out there. And I'm just going through your most recent post. This is the one from a couple days ago, July 13th, and it's awesome. You've got sections in there about teacher voices in reopening for the teacher perspective, choices for next year, quotes. It looks like you can embed YouTube videos as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
That's awesome. So this is just a great platform to use, and we would definitely highly recommend that along with you. I think maybe a good way to close this out is just like a general question about ways that EdTech can help build connections. I know that the newsletter is an obvious one, and you can either speak to that or just anything that you've seen this sort of tech world help you, especially in this time where we're, trying to keep education going in some form, but maybe without actually seeing our students and our parents.
Yeah, well, so first of all, I think, Twitter, like I said, just the way, we connected. Without Twitter, I would not be sitting here right now speaking to you guys. I think it's an awesome way, if you use it in a very purposeful way, to connect with others. Personally, I use my Twitter handle only for education. And it's when I go on, I'm only seeing excellent and awesome ideas and suggestions and conversations. And I love when I see some disagreement, so that we can settle on some common ground. I think Twitter is an amazing one. Some more Google Docs and Google Sheets, I think, are very powerful in ways that you can connect with others and assign different tasks to others. I really think that's one of the biggest, powerful components of EdTech, is that it expands reach. It expands your ability to do, one small task times 100, right? If I want to get our students connected, I can jump on a Padlet, type a question and put it out there. And when I come back, I can see hundreds of comments if they're using it. And that didn't require, hundreds of man hours on my part. The same could be true for Flipgrid or any other, communication platform within EdTech. So to me, EdTech, building connections is really one of the most powerful elements of it. And that's not even touching on the idea that you can connect with your students with people in different countries. And, as we look at moving online, that's something that everyone should look at as one of the big positives out of all this. If every student in the world is online, then why can't they talk to each other? Why can't we facilitate those conversations? So I think it's a huge component.
Yeah, one thing that I was thinking of is kind of how blessed we are right now to be going through COVID. I mean, it's not a blessing, but we are blessed that it's this time period. Because think if we were back, I know I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. What would life be right now? Well, first of all, the only way that we would get all the terribleness of COVID-19 is through a channel. And I only got 3 channels growing up. And we had a big satellite dish in my backyard that was like 12-foot circumference. But I mean, we would be totally out there. And right now we're seeing a lot of mental health issues arise because kids aren't able to go see their friends. Parents are super stressed out. Teachers are super stressed out because they have to balance their teaching with their families at the same time. So, this whole power of connectivity through EdTech mediums is really kind of a saving grace in this type of situation, I feel like.
Absolutely. And you know what it would be like if we were in the 80s. We would have parents driving by to pick up packets at every school, and they would be dropping them back off. There would be no real deep learning. We're very fortunate that this technology is available. And of course, equity has to be part of that conversation. And I'm encouraged when I go on Twitter and I see so many conversations about technology equity and making sure we're getting devices in the hands of everyone and high-speed internet accessibility to everyone. And I really hope this can be a catalyst to make sure that that's the norm as we move forward.
All right, so I think we've gone through the easy part of the episode. I think it's about time that we get into the GotTech hot seat. And I think it's time that we put Anthony Tyrkala on that hot seat.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, this is really I was going to call it the triumphant return of the hot seat, because we've been maybe for the past month and a half sort of knee deep in our G Suite series of episodes. We did 5 of them back to back. So the hot seat has taken a hold, but it's coming back today. Let me just give a quick introduction for any new listeners that aren't familiar with it. These are 7 rapid fire questions. Guise is sort of like the, I don't know, I guess we could call you the moderator, although I think we need a more fitting name for you, but we'll just stick with that for now. So he's going to throw these questions out. Anthony has not seen these questions ahead of time, so we're going to get his sort of like whatever the first thing that pops into his mind with each of these, which is the best part about it. I will be enjoying from the sidelines, listening in, and I'm going to sort of circle back and ask just some simple follow-up questions on 2 or 3 of Anthony's responses. So as always, Guise, are you prepared with your 7 questions for today?
Even though I don't talk fast, I'll try to read it as fast as I can.
And Anthony, are you prepared to sit on the hot seat today?
I'm ready. Bring it. Let's go.
All right, guys. Whenever you're good, we can get started.
You know what? He might be the most confident person that I've ever seen on the hot seat.
I'm more nervous than he is right now.
I'm going to really read these fast. I'm telling you. All right, Anthony, you are officially on the hot seat. Here we go. You're at a conference and you were asked to present on 3 EdTech tools. Which 3 would you choose?
So I'm going to go with Padlet, Google Forms, and Nearpod.
Okay, what is one Twitter chat that you look forward to?
Recently, EdAdventures, and historically Lead Up Chat.
You cheated a little bit with 2.
I'm always going to cheat.
We'll let it fly. What is one way that you let your colleagues know that they're doing a great job?
I tell them all the time.
What is one favorite quote or motto?
John Wooden, anything by him. In my email signature is things turn out best for those who make the best of the way things turn out.
Oh, that's deep. That's deep. Who is your favorite sports team?
Miami Hurricanes, but I'm also going to cheat and go with Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. Anything football.
He's just very excited that Tom Brady went down south.
Yeah.
All right. What is the best piece of advice that you could give a new teacher?
Relationships.
Build those relationships. All right. Name 3 people that Nick and I should follow on Twitter.
All right. So I got @Melzarini, Savvy Educator, and Class Tech Tips.
All right. You are officially done with the hot seat. I think you handled it pretty well. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, there's awesome responses. 7 good ones. I'm going to let the last one kind of speak for itself. Those are some great follows. I'm not familiar with 2 out of the 3, so I'm going to go check those out myself as soon as we're done here. There were a couple of things I wanted to ask about, though. The first one, I think it was your 6th question, just your advice to new teachers. You said that's relationships. What do you mean by that?
I think, that's the foundation of everything we do in life in general, but in education for sure. I think any time you spend building relationships is going to come back tenfold. All right. Any problem you may see in the future is going to be easier to deal with if you have established relationships. But more importantly, if our goal is to reach students and make a difference in their life, we're going to be successful at that if we have a relationship with them and they believe that we care about them. And I think that's the important element, right? It's not just caring. We all care. It's making sure that they know we care. And if they don't, figuring out how to make them understand that.
Yeah, I think you nailed that one on the head. Building those connections. I know some of the smartest people that I've, really smart people that come across in my life, but they don't know how to build connections. So they always end up a little bit south of where they want their dreams to, land just because of that connections piece. So really, you could get a well-rounded student that might get B's and they might be more successful because they know how to build those connections and those relationships. And I think that really goes true in all facets of life.
Yep. And it's also, I'll just tie in with that, the kids in your class that you do make a connection with, they're always more successful across the board. I've never had a kid that I didn't personally connect with that didn't do well. It's just a mindset. It's just they feel comfortable to ask for help. It extends to 1,000 other places. So that's a huge thing to try and build in your class. And I'm glad we got to mention it today. I think it also ties in with the other answer you gave that I was going to ask about, which is letting your colleagues know that they're doing a great job. Guise and I are really fortunate. We have awesome admin that does this all the time. And that's pretty much what you said too, is tell them all the time. Can you just sort of comment a little bit more on that? Maybe how you do it, types of things you say. What do you tell your teachers and your colleagues?
Yeah, I try my best to, in the moment, say it. So if I'm walking around the building and I see something, or if I walk in a class and I see something, I'll grab my phone and open up Outlook and dictate a message really quick, no salutation, no ending, just, hey, great job, connecting with that kid. I saw that question he had. I saw you where you moved that student seat. I think that's going to make a big difference. Obviously, I think any leader will tell you we want to do that more, right? We want to do that more. But when it comes to staff meetings, any opportunity to recognize what others are doing, especially if you know their job is kind of behind the scenes, right? Both of you know that, right? Working in EdTech, trying to coach teachers, not everyone's going to know the work you're putting in. So, I have to make sure I'm getting those stories out there. So whether I'm telling them personally shooting them a text, or saying it out loud in a staff meeting, now in a Zoom meeting, throwing up some slides and giving out some gift cards, whatever I can do to make sure my teachers understand that they're appreciated. It's worth the effort, because they are.
Yeah, that's a solid message. And I'm going to piggyback on both of you and just kind of give you a couple of examples of how our administration have done that. There was a point in time during the last school year where we had someone come in to speak and technology wasn't working the way that it should. So they called me up. They asked me if I had any ideas. I went down and I set something up, very makeshift. I set something up for them. The next day, I got a Post-it note with a lifesaver stapled, taped to it with a little message. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And that basically set the tone for the rest of my day right there, and made me a better person, in the short term, for something that took them very little to do, but they did recognize that, I did something positive. But I also do that with tech coaching, especially when we have teachers that are tech uncomfortable. That's my big word. We have tech comfortable, tech uncomfortable.
Nice.
So the teachers that are tech uncomfortable and have a little bit of faith in me as the tech coach to help them out and get them through a process and for them to see the value. I love taking what they do, sharing it with the administration so they could put it into their PowerPoint, or at the next faculty meeting for me to, just state, hey, we're doing an awesome job across the board in technology. Here's a couple of examples. So those are just a couple of ways that you can go about doing that.
Yeah, no, and I was just going to add, that ties right back into what we were talking about with relationships, right? It's not enough to care, right? You have to make sure everyone knows that you care. And, something like that little lifesaver card or anything like that would definitely help a teacher, have it for that day, have that knowledge that their administration cares and they have their back. And we can expand that with technology, right? We could use things like Padlet to expand that. We could use things like Flipgrid to expand that and make it visible to the entire school.
Yeah, how about I'll really circle this all back around to how we started the show and the name of the whole show, really, and that is, how big of a role does that play in mindset, right? Like I know my mindset at work is always about innovating and trying new things, and I want to do it because I know if I try, even if it fails, I can go to my superiors and show them that failure, and it's seen as a good thing, right? And that's so important to try and build that and that communication piece, building those relationships. Man, are we really tying this together in a nice knot here today, dude?
Yeah.
This is awesome. Let's wrap it up though with some EdTech. The first response you gave, your top 3 EdTech tools, I believe you said Padlet, Google Forms, and Nearpod.
Yeah.
Just say anything you want about them. Maybe what's your favorite one? How do you see your teachers using them effectively? What do you think about these?
Starting with Padlet, I've talked about it a few times. I'm in love with that program. I just think, the ability for asynchronous communication is so important when we're so busy and disconnected physically, right? So if we can throw up a question and have others answer and comment and like or rank or order, it really it's just exponential, our reach. Every week in my Mindset Monday, I've been adding a Padlet and giving a different prompt. And as you mentioned, this week's Mindset Monday, I took a different shift. I talked about, the lack of teacher voice right now in these reopening conversations, because, I could feel the weight of that as a principal. I can only imagine what a teacher's feeling as they turn on the news. So I shifted it, and then I added a Padlet completely separate, just saying, what is one good thing that has happened to you this summer? What is one thing that has brought you joy this summer? And if I go on there and I just had a staff meeting and I told the staff, go in and check it out if you haven't, because you can't read that and not walk away feeling good. And we're learning things about our colleagues, and we're learning things about each other, and we're able to connect. We miss that staff room feel that we usually have. It really just, Padlet's is an excellent way to expand, and teachers can do it with students or with each other, or even outside sports coaches could use it. It really is powerful. Google Forms it's just, to me, it's like a heavyweight champion. You put it together, you put it out there, and you get data, you get nice pie charts, you get, so much information, and then you export it into a spreadsheet and you can manipulate it. It really is just so powerful to collect information. Right now, I'm using it to determine, what are parents' feelings about returning to school? What are teachers' feelings about returning? What are people comfortable doing? And I can just get all of this data together. It takes a few minutes for everyone to complete it, but it just gives so much information all at once.
So, Anthony, you've given us a wealth of knowledge today. I'm not going to lie. This is probably the best, big circled episode of connectiveness that we've ever had on GotTech the Podcast, which is pretty awesome to see full circle. We want to thank you for being here. Are there any social media platforms that you want to share? Your handle or websites or anything like that, so the listeners can start following your Mindful Monday or anything like that?
Yeah, for me, Twitter is where it's at. I'm on Twitter all the time. That's where I put everything. So it'll be at Principal Turk. I just recently changed it, and I just love it. I think Twitter's the best thing. So if you want to connect with me, that will be the place, and I love connecting with others through there.
All right, so we just want to say again, thank you for your service. We also want to wish you a happy birthday, because we know that's coming up here shortly.
Yep,
We're not going to say how old you are or anything like that, but you look younger than me, so I'm not going to even say anything along those lines. And to our audience out there, make sure that you're giving Anthony a follow. And also make sure that you're coming out on Twitter. If follow Anthony, follow me at Guise Got Tech, Nick at Nick Got Tech, or the podcast at We Got Tech. As you can see from the banner going across the bottom, if you're watching us on YouTube, we do have an EduMentor chat every Wednesday night at 8:30 Eastern Daytime, and you can follow us there. So once again, thanks a lot for listening. This is GotTech the Podcast, and we are signing off.
Thanks for listening to GotTech the Podcast. Remember to subscribe to our show and follow us at We Got Tech on Twitter so you can stay up to date with the latest episode releases, blog posts, product reviews, and PD announcements. You can also follow Guise and I individually at Guise Got Tech and at Nick Got Tech on Twitter, or on Instagram at Nick Got Tech. Finally, remember to check out our website, GotTechED.com, where we post all our episodes, articles, and resources available to you for free. Until next time.